Just when you think it couldn't get worse here in Canada, apparently we are facing election interference, like out wide in the open, specifically here in British Columbia. There have been reports that in the advance polling, or in the advance voting rather, before the end of the deadline for the election occurred here in British Columbia, you had people that worked for Elections BC that actually took home some of the ballots. Now, I assume just on surface level, if I were to, see this and be like, oh, that was in good faith to protect the ballots, but that's also pretty illegal to do. So we're going to be taking a look at that along with a couple other things. We're going to dabble into American stuff because Kamala Harris actually got booed off of stage. Just 1 minute clip of the Joe Rogan and Trump podcast. And then we're going to be taking a look at the backlash from the Trudeau's immigration minister, of how he's basically cut back on immigration by like minimum 20%. Some of these pro-Palestinian protests that took place over the weekend. And then we're going to end things off with where are the Liberal Party headed? Where are they going? What's going to happen to Justin Trudeau? So everything is going to be in that order. Feel free to go throughout the video as you would wish. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video, everybody. Before we get into it, I do want to talk about how to best protect yourself, because we do live in a digital world. And the best way to do that is actually brought to you by today's sponsor. I'd like to thank today's sponsor, Private Internet Access. We've teamed up together and we're offering my audience 83% off for using code SUNSHINE, which can be found linked down below in the description or the pinned comment below. It's no surprise that we're living in a time of censorship, and Canada is unfortunately leading that race because of Justin Trudeau. Now, Justin Trudeau wants to make sure that you can't see the news. He wants to make sure that you can't see certain content on streaming platforms like Netflix, Hulu, Crave, and you shouldn't have Disney Plus because, of course, our finance minister said if you can't afford things, you should cancel Disney Plus. So the way around this is through a VPN such as Private Internet Access. Now, for those who don't know what a VPN is, it's a way to encrypt your data, basically putting a cloak over you so that you can freely browse the internet without feeling like your personal information is at risk or the government getting and selling your personal information. And the best way that I like to go about this, the best cloak that I like to put over myself, is Private Internet Access, which again can be found linked down below in the description or the pinned comment below for 83% off. Thank you, Private Internet Access, for sponsoring this video. Now let's get into the video. And just a quick reminder that if you haven't yet already signed the petition to stop the House Speaker Greg Fergus from muting the microphone in Parliament, link for that is down below in the description. All right, so let's take a look here at our first clip of Kamala Harris actually getting booed off of stage. This is kind of crazy, especially that we're heading into the final stretch for the American election. We're like a week and a bit away.
We are fighting for America's future, and we understand the opportunity we have before us to turn the page on the fear
Wow, like I've heard her get booed before, but that was unlike any other. And then on the other side of the spectrum, you've got obviously the recent Joe Rogan and Trump podcast. And this is a clip that Elon Musk actually shared on his X account.
Oh, it's a creepy, corrupt business, and the media, to a large extent, acts as a propaganda arm for the Democratic Party.
It's not even believable.
Yeah, it's bizarre to watch, and most young people, I think, are aware of it. I think most boomers still, unfortunately, read the newspapers and believe in CNN.
But it's getting younger. Let
yes.
me tell you, it's getting for us, for a conservative.
Yes.
And I consider myself a person.
It's the internet. It's because the internet's giving people information that they're not getting from anywhere else. And they like the very fine people hoax, the Russiagate hoax, all these different things that they've done. They tried to pin on you. That's like, it's a clear distortion of what you actually said.
The bloodbath hoax.
Yeah,
I was talking about the auto industry.
Yes.
It's a bloodbath because Japan and China are taking our auto. And I
Yes.
said, it's a bloodbath. They said, oh, he used the word bloodbath.
He said, if you don't win,
somebody,
it's going to be a bloodbath
that's
because
right,
they're going to
that's
take over.
right.
That's exactly what you
It's a terrible
said.
thing they do.
But that's the problem with propagandists, because they take things out of context, and ultimately what they do is they diminish their own credibility because people don't want to listen to them anymore because they see that they've done that and they recognize what's going on and they feel insulted.
Right. And so I think that I think personally that podcast really showed, I mean, one, how competent Donald Trump is in comparison to Kamala Harris. And there was a whole lot of other takeaways. But I mean, I'm sure you've seen it by now. If you have, let me know your opinion on that podcast, because I think it was a massive win for Donald Trump. And then we got to take things back here to Canada and just take a look at our massive shit show that's going on. So you've got our Canadian dollar hits an all-time, or maybe not an all-time low, but it's getting worse and worse as time goes on. And then you have the whole election in BC debacle. So Elections BC had allowed staff to take ballots home during the advanced voting week. And when you look at the comments, I mean, it is not looking good for the NDP, right? Which is who the current BC government is. So let's read this. When BC's early voting polls closed that night, did you know where your ballot was? Elections BC reported a record of more than 1 million people who voted in advance between October 10th and 16th. A member of one candidate's team showed the Breaker.News correspondence with Elections BC local official about a case of unmarked ballots being taken home for safekeeping. The candidate asked not to be identified in print. Supervisors have the options of keeping sensitive documents and ballots either at my district office or at a safe place off the polling place overnight. They're home but not left in their cars. The district returning officer wrote, the key point is keeping them off site. And I mean, I feel like the way that they've gone about things with this election, and I can now talk about this officially because I voted. Yes, I'm a first-time voter, just like a couple of weeks ago, but nonetheless, I voted, so I officially have the stamp of approval for bitching about politics. So, haha, to all the people that said I can't complain about it because I never voted, I've just proved you wrong. I feel like the whole point of going digital was so that we would have accurate and immediate results instantaneously, within 5 minutes. After the polls close, everything should have been tabulated digitally, and it would spit out a number, who won, who didn't, what are the results, literally no more than 5 minutes. The fact that it didn't take 5 minutes is, okay, well, we went digital for that to happen. It didn't work. So now what? And now we're looking at all of these massive stories that are coming out, and they got, like, I've seen so many different numbers, 20-some thousand or 40-some thousand, and I've even seen 65,000 mail-in ballots are being counted this weekend for the BC elections. And it's craziness what is going on. Look, as a long time 2-week voter, I would like to say, I'd like to share my opinion on this. I don't know if you need 2 votes minimum or if 1 is suffice, but nonetheless, I think that we should just be doing it in person, and it should be scribble in who you're voting for, and then that's it. And then it's manually counted. And then you got people from volunteers or staff that watch the counting happen. And maybe that might be the best way to do it, but that's just my opinion. And I would absolutely love to know yours. But this BC election, I think we're getting the results later today. And I mean, it's craziness. It's craziness, man. Like, anybody who voted for NDP, you're voting for drugs on the streets, you're voting for more crime. It's craziness. How do they say it down in the South? Bless your heart. Yeah, I'm gonna just start saying that to people that aren't conservative. Bless your heart. All right, now let's take a look at some more news here. So, cutting back on the number of new immigrants coming to Canada could hurt the economy, according to business advocates and economists. That's quite the claim. Immigration Minister Mark Miller says the federal government's new immigration levels plan will stabilize population growth and ease the strain on the housing market. So a little bit of controversy here in their responses. Let's take a look at what he has to say.
Listen, I want to begin with what we heard from Pierre Poilievre, because he has responded to your announcement this morning. He calls it a massive admission of failure and, quote, desperate to save himself from Liberal MPs who want him gone, Trudeau now admits his immigration policies caused housing, healthcare, and job crises, but he can't fix what he broke. How do you respond to that statement from Mr. Poilievre?
I mean, Michael, that sounds like the immature response of a guy that spent the last 20 years punching a paycheck in the House of Commons and not getting out of Ottawa. He's not proposing anything concrete. He's just trying to lay blame like he always does. He's so lazy that he hasn't even come up with a slogan yet, so I'm waiting for that to be able to comment further. The reality is this is a reasonable plan that we've put forward for reasonable controlled growth of the immigration system in Canada. Certainly there's a time and space to discuss the large increase in volume of immigration over the last couple of years. Actually, that's helped us come out and avoid a recession and deal with a once-in-a-lifetime occurrence in COVID. So there's a lot of good there, but there are a lot of challenges and conundrums that have come up. Impact on affordability. You can't blame all that on immigrants, but certainly there's a space where we can have a rational discussion about that increase in volume and the need to correct. Any responsible government needs to adjust, correct, and propose what we're proposing today. This is the product of about a year of work, as these levels plans are, and frankly, we've listened to Canadians.
Right. So Canadians have been saying this for quite some time, and the government actually called them racist, called them wrong, called them, said that it was discrimination. And then here they are doing those exact things that they accuse Canadians of doing with all those slanderous name calling and accusations. So it's just, it doesn't make any sense, man. This government, they gaslight you, they call you names, and then they turn around and then they try to do what's actually best for the country. It's like, hey, you caused the problem for so long, man. Did you think that we were going to forget? But that's my opinion, and I would love to know yours. And then you have this breaking news bit here where 4 people have been arrested in Poland for plotting to send exploding packages to Canada and the United States.
All right, and we're tracking this breaking news just coming into us here at CTV. 4 people have been arrested in Poland in Central Europe, allegedly for plotting to send parcels containing explosives to both Canada and to the United States. We don't have a lot of details here, but definitely disturbing turn of events. Let's bring in security expert Anthony Seaboyer. Anthony, your thoughts on what we're hearing on these arrests?
Well, it's very early, of course, at this point, but what this reminds me of is the German National Security Service warning in August of attacks in the form of parcels sent through the mail to various European countries by Russian actors as a part of sabotage efforts.
Yeah, why might Canada be a target?
Well, obviously, Russia is trying to spread chaos in the West in general, all Western countries, but I think particularly the strong support the Canadian government and Canadians have had for Ukraine is something that Russia is trying to undermine with hybrid warfare, with gray zone warfare, which this could be a part of.
Yeah, we got some more details here. 4 individuals arrested. We know what they were planning to do here, according to the authorities here, sending explosives to Canada and the United States. What about that method, you know, and how easy or not you think it is to try and potentially do this kind of thing, Anthony?
Well, it's something security services haven't been really set up to prevent. It's very difficult if you imagine the amount of parcels being sent around the world every day. It's something, though, that law enforcement has become aware of. There's been multiple warnings about this newer approach of warfare that we're seeing in terms of Russian sabotage efforts. So there are some measures being put in place more and more to monitor parcels, but it's a huge challenge that we're facing at this point.
I think that's craziness. That's craziness that Canada is still being under attack. I mean, I'm glad the packages got intercepted and that the right legal measures are being taken. But still, man, that's crazy. What the hell? Like, what did Canada do to deserve this? Well, I mean, we sure don't have a popular government, I'll tell you that. And then you've got this video here that explains a little bit in a shotgun answer of what's going to happen. Can Trudeau actually be removed as Liberal leader? Which is the question that a lot of people, frankly, really want the answer to.
The Liberals trying to get back to normal.
Mina, thank you for joining us as well.
A Friday fan out across the country with ministers announcing new spending.
That work takes heart.
But the questions keep coming.
The leader has committed to us and to Canadians that we will fight the next election together, and that is the only thing that we are focused on.
A message echoed in Ottawa by those in the backbench who still support Justin Trudeau.
I personally think that we have greater issues at hand that we should be discussing in the media, including foreign interference.
But it's not just the media talking about it. Numerous Liberal MPs stood up and urged Justin Trudeau to resign in a private caucus meeting Wednesday. Less than 24 hours later, he made it clear he's not going anywhere.
So are you planning on staying as Prime Minister past October 28th?
Yes. We're going to continue to have great conversations about what is the best way to take on Pierre Poilievre in the next election, but that'll happen with me as leader going into the next election.
And some of those who previously expressed concerns seem to now be falling in line.
We're a unified caucus, unified behind ensuring that Pierre Poilievre never gets into government, and we are a one family having a conversation internally.
All right, they them.
Need to publicly be backing Trudeau.
We're in a difficult moment, but we either unite or we don't, and I think that unity is really critical if we're going to take on Poilievre.
I think we're unified in figuring out a plan forward, for sure.
You think this is just going to go away?
I think so, yeah.
Caucus unity, one of three headaches Justin Trudeau has. The House of Commons completely paralyzed, unable to deal with government business, and then there's the Bloc Québécois. They want an increase in OAS payments in exchange for voting with the Liberals on non-confidence votes, something the Liberals said they're not willing to do. The deadline to find a deal, next Tuesday.
And there you go. We're going to know in the next couple of days. Isn't that exciting? I actually posted on X about this, which is why for those that don't already follow me, I highly recommend you guys go do so. I said, where is it here? This might be the final month of Justin Trudeau being Prime Minister of Canada. Everything comes down to come to an end on Tuesday. The Bloc has not received what they demanded, and the next step is for them to put forward a vote in on confidence. And with their rebel MPs, we might just have enough votes to trigger an election. Y'all ready for a federal election in November? Which is, I mean, like, yeah, it is a little bit of a pipe dream, but it actually is also a reality. I don't know what percent, maybe 50-50, but the fact that a vote in on confidence is like 75 to 90% likely to happen, you know, we could very well see. It all depends. It all hinges on those rebel MPs, the Rebel Alliance, go Rebels, right? Or even the NDP. They could just have a change of heart and say, you know what, let's just vote in favor of it. Why not? But that seems a little bit less likely than the Rebel MPs. But again, that's just my opinion, and I would love to know yours. And then you've got this this article here by CBC that says, next steps in Trudeau's caucus revolt is up to each MP, says the Liberal backbencher. A group of Liberal MPs have demanded that Trudeau decide his future as party leader by Monday. So tomorrow we're going to know, you know, what's going on with Justin Trudeau. But again, he's not going to step down. He's not going to prorogue. So those things are completely off the table. That's just not an option at all. In an interview airing on Sunday, New Brunswick MP said that every MP is their own kind of space. And that when it comes to the next steps after the deadline, a lot of it is up to each individual MP. So again, we're only going to know when it comes time for the actual vote, which again, again, is 75 to 90% likely to happen. The Bloc is not getting what they wanted. They've already said if we don't get what we want, we call a vote on confidence after October 29th. Liberals are not going to cave in. They're just not, right? It's not on the cards. So chances are very, very likely that this week coming up, we're going to see another vote on confidence. This will be the third one since they've resumed from the summer break. But again, these Liberal MPs, the Rebel Alliance, they're fed up. And so we're just going to have to wait and see. But it's exciting. There's more of a chance now than there was the previous two times because the Bloc is now teaming up with the Conservatives. So it's a pretty exciting week, and we could see something historic that we've just never seen before. And I identify as being optimistic, but let me know if you're kind of riding that wave of optimism or if you're just sour. I mean, you have the right to be. I don't blame you if you are sour. And then we've got these pro-Palestine protests that are just getting crazy out of hand in Toronto. So taking over the streets and just pausing to say their prayers, that is a thing. And then there's these clips. Every single weekend for over a year, this has gone on. And then there was this clip here that I came across where people are holding these smoke grenades out their windows while driving and recording, which is crazy because you get a ticket for, I mean, in theory, you get a ticket in Canada for eating an apple and driving, or drinking a coffee, or being on your phone. But holding smoke grenades or flares out your window is, according to the government, A-OK. And then you've got some more here. They have not slowed down with the momentum of these protests, I'll tell you that. Oh yeah, we're going to mute that one. But as you can see, being confronted by police, this is the moment where TPS loses it and attacks an Indigenous organizer. And so you can see the police are not having it with the protesters. And there were actually a significant amount of arrests that took place, but not before they took over Montreal train station. Here. And you can actually see them like standing here on the kiosks and stuff. I just never would have expected a government to bend the knee at these types of protests ever in my life. And then you have this speech here by this woman that's going pretty viral.
And Canada is a white supremacist, colonial, racist project, as is Israel, as is the state of Israel. So I don't even consider myself to be a Canadian because this is Indigenous land and this land is occupied. So the people who are here, whether they are settlers, we firstly need to educate ourselves about what has happened on this land and what is continuously happening in order for us to be able to understand what our government or this government is doing on abroad and on overseas.
So you've got, I mean, I suppose terrorist sympathizers living in Canada, Canadian citizens going to school, working Canadian jobs, and they don't consider themselves Canadian because they identify still as a Palestinian or whatever. That's just the state of Canada right now. And this lack of patriotism, I think personally, is hurting us. This level of division where people are focusing on matters that aren't Canadian, I think it's just creating a massive wedge, but it's also looking really, really bad for Justin Trudeau because they're not happy with Trudeau. They're not happy with the Liberals because they're not stopping a war. Trudeau isn't stopping a war in the Middle East himself. So, of course, you're going to see a bunch of angry people that are not a fan of Justin Trudeau. Then speaking not a fan of Justin Trudeau, Vashi here organized a front bench at CTV to talk about what we're potentially going to be seeing this week with votes of non-confidence and the rebel Liberals.
That $1 million question, what do you think does happen next?
I think the honest answer is that they don't know and we don't know. I really do. I mean, even Mark Miller, who is one of the Prime Minister's staunchest allies in cabinet in the Liberal Party, one of his closest friends, said in scrums to us afterwards, there's still some things to be sorted out. So he's saying that even as he says the Prime Minister is staying, he wants to stay on. And that seems to be the message, but it's unclear how that squares with what he heard behind those closed doors. My understanding is that he spoke at the beginning of caucus and the end of caucus. And at the beginning of caucus, it was much of what they've heard before. And at the end of caucus, it was more about saying he heard them. It was hard to hear it, but he believes he's the right person. So when he says he's going to reflect, but also believes he's the right person, it's hard to see how that all squares and how they actually do unite behind their leader because nobody was very clearly saying that today. or at least not as resoundingly clear as they were saying they were united against Pierre Poilievre.
I thought the fact, Carl, that is clearly the talking point they were given, and that they all delivered, those who willingly spoke to reporters publicly, was that we're united against Pierre Poilievre. Understandably, okay, but they weren't all saying that they are united behind the Prime Minister. And to Marika's point, I mean, he promised at the end to reflect on what they had brought forward to him. And if you have more than 24 MPs say they want you to leave, like, where does that leave you?
Well, I mean, it was 2,000 MPs, about what, 15% of caucus? That was a good day under Jean Chrétien. So it's a matter of how do you handle it, right? And the thing is...
I don't think it went very well for Jean Chrétien.
Well, he lasted, I mean, he was there for a long time. The thing is, when the ship is sinking, you have two different reactions. You have the people who jump off the ship and they run away, they get away. We've seen a few of those so far, there will be more. Then you have those who feel that they're drowning. And when you're drowning, what do? Well, you panic, you want to throw the captain overboard, you flip the lifeboat and you grab onto anything or anyone and you bring them down with you. That's what happened today. This was not productive. It won't achieve anything. It's a lose-lose proposition, and there's no way out in the short term unless Justin Trudeau decides that he's gone. And even if he's gone, I don't see a savior. There's no savior, and there's no force, no real force behind it. That's why these MPs mostly are still anonymous.
Do you think that they... Jamie felt like and I take Carl's point, I get how in the long run, I don't know how productive this ends up being for the party, but my sense is they didn't feel like they had other options, basically.
Yeah, I think if you translate the Prime Minister's talking points from talking point English to actual English, he effectively said, my leadership lives to see another day. These struggles are going to continue. And so I think when you look at what's gone on here, this is now going on month 3 of this kind of feeling like it's at a fever pitch. The government isn't able to get a message out about anything else. They're not debating any policy. They're not even throwing attacks at the Conservatives or any of the opposition parties. They're always just talking about themselves. And that in and of itself is going to even further the Liberal Party negatives and further the negatives on the Prime Minister, because he's not actually delivering in an environment where everyone is already frustrated. I think anything short of an actual short, quick succession playbook where he's able to say, here's what we're going to do, here's our best shot, and he actually gets buy-in from caucus, this is just going to continue to kind of trickle along, suck up all the oxygen in Ottawa, and ultimately tell Canadians that this government is done.
Yeah, I think Jamie circles me back to like the question I keep thinking about, Saeed, which is like, where does this go? So, for example, if the Prime Minister a week from now does tell MPs, you know what, I'm doubling down, I really do believe that I'm still the right person, like, your choice if you stay and go, or 24 of them going to decide not to seek re-election or citizen independence. Like, I don't know if they've followed it through that far in the thought process.
Yeah, exactly. And the fact is that this news is not just national, but it's now international news. The fact that there is dissent within the Prime Minister's own caucus, whether it's 20 or more, along with low polling numbers, does not do much to instill confidence in a potential future run. So that is going to be one of the biggest challenges. I think what's causing the delay is trying to figure out what's next. Even if there was to be another leader, how would they get picked? Who would that person be? When it comes to ridings, are the ridings ready? Is the fundraising where it should be? How is an election going to be run in this scenario? Now, you had a great guest on, Nick Nanos, right before us, who really talked about seeing polling numbers that essentially increased for the Liberals slightly when they heard that potentially there was some dissatisfaction around the Prime Minister and his position going to the next election. So that was interesting, and I think that may be something that they could take to heart going forward in the event that they do essentially try and find another leader.
I actually found it.
They're not going to be finding another leader. This has been said by many different sources. This has been said by Justin Trudeau himself. So I don't even know why the media is entertaining this. Frankly, this is just spreading fear-mongering. Justin Trudeau's cabinet, Freeland, has said proroguing is not on the table. Justin Trudeau's own mouth, right from the horse's mouth. Whoops, where are my manners? Said that he's not stepping down and he's going to lead them into another election. So the reality, to sound like a freaking nut job here, but the reality is, Mr. Speaker, that there's 2 or 3 different opportunities for an election. The regular scheduled federal election, end of October 2025. Or a fall election, because the Bloc is not getting what they're wanting and they are going to push forward a vote of non-confidence. anyone can do it almost at any time. You could have a vote of non-confidence happen every single week if you wanted to, but they don't, because it's just like kind of crazy to do that. Pierre's already put forward 2. He could put forward more if he would like, but he hasn't yet. The Bloc is going to do it if they don't get what they want by Tuesday, which they are not going to get what they want. If they do, I mean, then we go the distance to next year. So we've got an election potentially in 1 year from now, an election potentially in 1 month from now, or an election potentially at the start or a couple months into 2025. But again, if we make it past the holidays into 2025, I highly doubt they're going to do a early election. Then they're just going to wait until after the summer break. So it's now or at the end of next year. It's now or in a year from now, basically, is what I'm saying, is my opinion. I don't believe these guys at all. I mean, the front bench just said that, you know, they're looking for another leader. They're not. Trudeau is not looking to be replaced. You can't force him to step down. It's just not happening. So an election now or an election a year from now, it's plain and simple. But that's my opinion. I would love to know yours. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of the video. If you enjoyed it, please encourage you guys to smash the like button and subscribe. And just remember that supporting the sponsors of this channel is also supporting this channel. Thank you very much, and I'll see you guys later on. Bye for now.